people here. I'm going to tell you a couple different stories about Nor Geghi, focusing mostly on the geology. I'm not a geologist, but I work with geologists and I like them very much. So I do have some interesting things to say. Any point in time, stop me for a question. Two things I'd like to ask you not to do. One is to fall in that deep hole over there. You're free to touch the section, etc., but please don't knock out any samples because there is archaeology here, and if we lose the context of the piece, we just throw it over the edge. I'm exaggerating, but... So, I think Hajik told you a little bit on the way here about the Gedem Range and the volcanoes there. Those volcanoes are extremely important because they have played a primary role in the formation of the geomorphology of this whole area. In particular is Mount Gutanasar, which you can barely just see the top of over there. And it's relevant because that is the source of all of the volcanic activity, most of the volcanic activity here at the site. Periodic eruptions of basaltic lavas over hundreds of thousands of years move off to the west here and then come coursing down the Razdan Gorge, which was a large floodplain. What I'm actually sitting against here is the Razdan floodplain. Razdan River is there now, but several 100,000 years ago, it was a kilometer that way and has since incised in this direction. But those lavas are important in this case because it capped the site and preserved it, but also it totally reorganizes the surrounding landscape. The lavas come coursing down the river valleys, they block the river, forming a dam, which then forms a lake in the lee side. Those lakes eventually drain through erosion and tectonics, the river resumes its course, and the floodplain gets reestablished. So we have this cycle of floodplain, lavas, lakes, dams, floodplain, etc., over and over again. What we have here is the latest phase of that series of events. So we have this basalt. There are about 10 in the gorge. This is basalt 1, and we've dated it through argon to 200,000. Below that, we have basalt 7, which you can see outcropping here and diving down at a sharp angle. This is the top of it. It's heavily weathered. It's also quite rubbly. The rest of it is behind you and down the side of the gorge. We've dated that to 440,000. So we have a perfect dating sandwich here with lots of alluvial material in between. This is the type section for the site until this summer. It's the section we've published. I believe it's the section that is in your excursion guide. And this is where we began excavating in 2008 when we discovered the site. And the site is only known about because the Armenian military that used to have a base here decided in early 1990s to cut a road into the gorge. So prior to that cut, there would have been a talus here of sediment covering all of this alluvial material. But because they cut the road, from those electrical stanchions over there, I saw the site and came running over and found obsidian artifacts sticking out in various positions, but primarily in the Paleosol. So I'll start at the top because this is the top of the sequence here. It gets deeper in that direction. So at basalt 1, we have this unit 1, which is a floodplain deposit, and it's from here we dated Sanadine using argon to 308, plus or minus 3, I think. So 308,000. There's a major unconformity here because below Unit 1, we have a Paleosol, which we call Unit 2, 3, 4, and 5, forming in alluvial deposits. We have pedogenic processes well defined, especially in layer 2, but also, of course, moving into layer 3 with translocation, nice PEDs that you can actually see. The problem is the section is rather dry right now, but you can, like I said, you can grab pieces if you like. And that's what we thought we had here. And so we've published a few things. In 2014, we published a paper summarizing the geology briefly, focusing primarily on the archaeology, which was interesting because it contains every single kind of artifact you can conceive of in terms of type and technology. And it came as a surprise to us because normally you don't see that. You tend to see a more homogeneous sort of technological repertoire in an assemblage. But here we had bifaces, we had hierarchical cores with flakes, We also had Levallois technology. We had blades. We had all sorts of different retouch tools as well. And normally those things are found around here, over in the village of Nornos.
What's material?
Obsidian. Everything is obsidian. We'll have a table set up for you down there. Here in Nornos, Jaraber, where Lubin worked, there are surface scatters of material. And when archaeologists find them, they find this weird mix of things. But they assume the hand axes are older than the cores, and are older. The cores are probably older than the Levallois. And then you have certain retouch tools that are younger, some are older. But here it's all in one package. It's one time slice. It all belongs together. And that was what was unique about the site. Archaeologists have lots of silly hypotheses, one of which was that Levallois technology, which is a core and flake technology, was brought to Eurasia by humans expanding out of Africa 300,000 years ago. In the paper we published, we demonstrated pretty clearly, I think, with a lot of supporting evidence from other sites around the globe, that Levallois is a technology that comes out of pre-existing knowledge of making bifaces. And I can show you examples in how you can easily conceive taking the knowledge you have about making a biface and manipulating that to be into Levallois technology, where the goal is not making this biface, but the goal is making flakes. And the flakes can be made by the hundreds, and they're very sharp, and you can use them to cut, slice, butcher, whatever. So it's a quick, easy technology. There's not as much emphasis on the final product. The final product is the flake, not the hand axe. In the past, the shaping of the stone would be done to produce an object of predefined shape and size. So we have some here. They were making them here. But we also have Levallois cores, and we also have cores that were bifaces. They were manipulated into a core at their last stage. So we can see this evolution in technology at this one site, which is unique. We associate, because there's a large hiatus here, an unconformity, and we have this nice soil here, we associate this with stage 9E. Now we can't prove that, but that's our working hypothesis, and we have no reason to disconfirm that yet. So everything that we're doing works. It seems to be correlating nicely with that idea. Consequently, this is probably 325 to 335,000 years old, but the archaeology in it is older because the pedogenic processes overprint this parent material, this alluvium, okay? So there are people here on the edge of the Rosden floodplain 335 plus thousand years ago making stuff, dropping it, leaving, and only later do you get the soil formation within that parent material and archaeology. So how much older the archaeology is than the sediments, I don't know. And we thought we were done here. So when we first arrived at the site, there was a lot of material on the surface here, and we've skimmed a lot of it off, but you're standing on rubbish from the bulldozer still. Over here, it's been cleaned up. And we dug these layers all the way over to the bend in the section over there. But in 2013, we dug a bunch of trenches with a digger. We realized we had new layers the further south we went along the section. So since 2013, we've been expanding the excavation to the south and down, and we've hit all sorts of new layers. We can move over there next, but before I do, does anyone have any questions about this spot?
What
Yeah.
about fritting? Because the basalt flows over the surface.
What about,
Fritting.
what is fritting?
Heating.
Heating?
Yeah.
Heating. So there are two things here. This floodplain deposit here is severely truncated. Okay, this is 300,000, this is 200. So we're missing a big chunk of time and sediment. There was probably a calcrete up here as well, because we see evidence of it here. This is extremely hot. I don't know the temperatures, but it certainly has impacted the coloration here to some degree. I've seen buried sediments under basalts with no heating. I've seen them with extreme heating and everything in between. So I don't think it's impacted this too much. But the problem is it has destroyed all paleoenvironmental information. All the pollen's gone, phytoliths are gone, plant waxes and alkanes gone, and there are no bones, which is the big problem. So we are really limited in what we can say about past environment, based in part on the heating, but also taphonomic processes that preceded this lava. Charles?
You're saying, you're suggesting suggesting MIS 19?
9E.
9E, sorry.
So-
That's
yep.
what I was getting.
No, not 19. Yes.
What is the lower limit of all this section? Have you some
So this basalt 7 goes very deep into the gorge.
so no lower?
We've looked for lower sediments under basalt 7 and we haven't found them, unfortunately.
And second, why you think that it is river deposit?
It's all alluvium.
Yes.
Why
You
it's,
don't.
Maybe floodplain deposit.
This is a floodplain. I'm sorry, this is a floodplain, yeah. This is the source of all the sediments from the river.
Maybe some pound.
Sometimes it's low energy, and over there I'll show you sometimes it's high energy. Around the corner we cut a trench in 2013, which is gravels, thick gravels. It's not the main channel. The main channel is a kilometer that way. But you again get streams, high energy streams flowing in this direction as well. And we've measured the orientation of all of the rocks to get a sense of the direction of the flow. The problem here is the geometry of the site is impossible to really understand because we only have one view of it. We don't have a cross section anywhere. These deposits also would have spanned all the way across to the opposite side of the gorge, which is the foothills of Kutanasar. So the lava and the floodplain deposits would have been over there. So we would have been on one edge of it, but it couldn't have been any further.
What you date for the lava, you date the obsidian,
Sorry,
the glass.
I believe it was the glass. I don't remember. I believe so. I don't remember. But I can look it up.
I think it's ground mass.
It's it's ground mass. It has to be ground mass.
It is basaltic andesite.
We only do ground mass.
Okay. And the Sanidine, it's dated there.
It's
but
here.
It's reworked.
This is not reworked. So I was very anxious about reworking. So we do micromorphology top to bottom. And we did 3 micromorph samples from here, from exactly where the sample, dated sample came from and elsewhere along the sequence.
What is this rock, type of rock?
Sanidine. is
This sanidine. What is the rock itself? Deposit itself. What is it?
This is a floodplain deposit.
Huh?
It's a floodplain deposit.
And what is
It's-
the origin of
so-
sanidine in this?
So the sanidine is very fresh. There's a lot of it. It's not rolled or weathered. And so it's obviously not, they believe it, so it's being dated in Glasgow by Darren Mark. And they believe, along with the micromorphologists, it's not in perfect position, but it hasn't moved so far. That's the best we can say.
I'll show you a good example during my presentation.
Okay.
Of something
Fine.
that passed the glacial interglacial state.
Well, the nice thing is we also have IRSL dates that work. Everything seems to work.
OSL.
IRSL on K feldspars. They're not perfect because of the heating. The heating has, so we did a OSL sample here. We have the sanidine at 308. This returned a luminescence date of 200. Exactly the same. It's completely zeroed. And we have multiple samples, and as you work your way down, more of the original signal is preserved. But they're all minimum age estimates at this point because we don't know how much of the signal has been removed.
No problem with sanidine. Determination of age is very correct. Now the problem is what is the origin of sanidine in this
I agree.
deposit?
So we have tephra throughout the section. We have the geochemistry on all of it. We will date more of it.
So tephra is here.
Cryptotephra. So you can't see it here. So we sample every 2 centimeters.
Sanidine is from this tephra.
Is from here. So
The result of weathering.
no, I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
Forgot the word, special word. Transformation
Yeah.
is in sedimentary rock.
So the next move is to date.
Replaced from the tephra.
No, I don't think so. So the next move is to date the tephras we do have here and find out which volcanoes they came from. So if we can geochemically fingerprint them to some of the local tephras, we can go and date the proximal tephras and see how they line up with the dates we're getting here. So they should be the same, but where they seem to be, the micromorphologists believe it's an airfall. And it's not a lot of material, but it could easily be reworked a bit. It's a floodplain deposit. So where is it coming from? Is it airfall or is it being worked in through water. It's hard to say. But based on the lines of evidence I just mentioned, the interpretation is that it's airfall rather than being washed in.
Can you explain us why you think that all these type of artifacts belong to one period of time? Can it be a part of
Well, this of course, every archaeological site's a palimpsest.
okay, but
Every single one. But within this course package, time package of several tens of thousands of years, we have all these things together. The contrary argument would be you had different people making, like archaeological cultures, which I don't believe in, making different types of artifacts, occupying this site at different times and dropping, it doesn't make any sense. We also have refits between, well, not between layers, but between broken pieces and reduction refits. So flakes onto cores and things like that. So yes, it's a palimpsest. All sites are palimpsests. The question is how much time is represented here. And that's why, again, we need to come back and date more of the tephras.
The soil is a weak developed soil, so it didn't last long.
It's not long. Keep in mind, we have 440 and 200. We have not a lot of sedimentation over 200,000 years, but there's a lot of sedimentation missing. So we have lots of truncated layers. This is the most complete one, and it's only complete because the lava covered it and buried it and preserved it. Otherwise, it too would have probably been eroded at some point. But I can show you some more of that, the complicated aspects of the site down here.
So the population of Sanidine is homogeneous.
Yes, yeah, it's
You don't
homogeneous.
have more than one
No.
peak.
No, we don't. But we have this tephra is geochemically identical to another one here, which is probably coming from the same volcano. That's what we think at the moment. So if we move down to,
You
yeah,
are sure that Sanidine have volcanic origin?
yes, yeah. So if we move to the center by the pit there, I can tell you a little bit more.